I'd like to welcome everyone to the session this evening. We are happy to have you here. My name is Daisy. I'm an employee relations partner at SNHU, so I work with our lovely career advisors and team to help bring events like this to our students. If you haven't already, feel free to start interacting in the chat. You're welcome to share where you're from, what your major is, and a pro tip, if you want to go ahead and share your LinkedIn profile, you can start to connect with your peers here in the room today. A little bit of housekeeping to start us off. So your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify. If you're an online student, it'll be the Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. If you're a campus student, it'll be the Campus Accessibility Center, and you can email cac@snhu.edu, or you can call at 603-644-3118. And finally, if you are an SNHU staff or faculty, you can contact the Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. I also want to take a moment to give a shameless plug. So just so you know, our SNHU career services are a lifetime benefit. So they're here for you when you're a student and as well when you're an alumni. There's a variety of resources that we can offer you, including resume help and interview assistance. So feel free to reach out and connect with us however you prefer. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And what I would like to do is let you know that unfortunately one of our panelists was sick today and won't be able to make it. So instead, we will be having a conversation with Bob from Iron Mountain. So Bob, if you wanted to go ahead and say a bit about yourself and Iron Mountain, that would be appreciated.
Sure, I can do that. So first off, thank you for reaching out and the invitation, the opportunity to chat. I'm always happy to connect and help with people from the standpoint of it's tough when you're just getting rolling and figuring out what's out there and how things are going. So Daisy reached out to me. I'm actually a SNU alum. I did my graduate work and some postgraduate work at Southern New Hampshire. So that it was a very good experience and it served me well. So happy to say that. My bachelor degree is in computer science. Then I have an MBA in postgraduate work in organizational development, HR management. I'm a lead technical recruiter here at Iron Mountain. I've been in the industry for quite a while, decades. So I've been there, done that, been through a number of the technology booms and slowdowns, shall we say. It's all part of the experience. You get used to that after a while. Can't say you ever love it, but it is part of the experience if you're going to play in this space. Daisy, do you want me to go overview for Iron Mountain, or do you want to pause for a moment?
No, if you wanted to share a bit about Iron Mountain, that'd be perfect.
Okay. Do you have a rough? How long do you want to go on the overview and summary of Iron Mountain?
Really, as long as you want. Let's say maybe I'll cap you at 10 minutes.
I can do 10. Sure. Sounds good. All righty. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Nice. Jay has the bachelor's degree in computer science with software engineering. Outstanding. Yeah, it'll serve you well, Jay. There you go. Okay. So first, I guess first and foremost, we'll start off with an overview. So with people being local to the area, a lot of times with Iron Mountain, we hear, "Oh, hey, you're the data storage people. The people with the white trucks and people driving around with the boxes." And that is true. That is our core legacy business, and we refer to it as ground transportation. This is actually a really interesting forum to have this discussion because it interfaces the business aspect of things with the technology aspects of things, and that's one of the things that Iron Mountain does really well. I've worked in probably three-quarters of my career in DoD technology companies, and Iron Mountain is definitely more of a where business meets need and uses technology as a mechanism to get there. So when Daisy reached out to me about this, I was like, you know what? I think it's a really good combination of, how do I bridge that business background to a technology background? And, do companies really do that? And in our case, very much true and is the case. So Iron Mountain's a lot older and a lot bigger than most people realize. We've been around about 70 years, and there's literally an Iron Mountain up in upstate New York, and it all started with offsite secure data storage. So what we now think of today is trivial. You hook up a terabyte drive that you bought at Staples for $80. That is a relatively new concept in terms of technology, right? So boxes stored offsite security and fire and theft and all those horrible things. So that's how we get started. Very profitable business, has been for a long amount of time. It is a cash cow business for us. Very, very cash fluxed. Very, very positive cash flow. We've been publicly traded for about 20 years at this point. If you look at take a look at our financials and our history, we have seen last 3 or 4 years best quarter-over-quarter revenue returns. We actually pay dividends, which is really interesting for a technology-facing company. Pretty rare. So very, very good fiscal story. Now, why do I go through all that? Because when you're talking about what you're trying to do here with blending, the business aspect and the tech aspect, we have our cash cow business, which is ground transportation, and then we have 3 other major sections. So we're pretty well diversified. We have asset lifecycle management, which, as the name implies, recycling anywhere from the component level, which is literally grinding up the boards, grinding up the IC chips, all the way to and through recycling of servers. So when you think about, I think we're all familiar with social media, the Google, the Meta, the Facebooks, the Instagram. Those are referred to in the industry as hyperscalers. And hyperscalers have hundreds of thousands of servers to keep us all out of trouble. And so that when we go on our mobile devices, it's just always there. You never think about it. It just always works, right? It takes an incredible amount of hardware. So what they do, rather than maintain their own systems, they house monster warehouses of what are referred to in the industry as data centers. And Iron Mountain has a very solid footprint in the data center industry. So asset lifecycle management handles recycling anywhere from the component level, like I previously said, up to and through servers. So hyperscalers actually burn out servers, if you will, far before their usefulness is gone. So we recycle them to either nonprofits, third-party ventures, third-party developing countries. Lots and lots of life left into these, and there's enough computing horsepower to run small cities with what the hyperscalers recycle on a regular basis. So that's asset lifecycle management. Data centers I just referred to, and that's those monster warehouses where there's tens of thousands of servers. We're talking about big enough that when we drop a new data center in, we have to negotiate with the utilities to bring enough power in to run the systems. I mean, you don't just drop a new building in for a data center and the phone and power guys come and hook it up and you're good to go. We're requiring demands of the utilities infrastructure specific to our sites. So that's pretty big efforts, as you might imagine. In cooling, something other people don't often think about, in the data center industry in the United States, the monster spots are in the Manassas, Virginia area and the Arizona area. So all the major hyperscalers have these monster plants in the middle of the desert. Water is actually a key resource, whether or not we can get the municipalities to commit to provide us with enough water to keep these things cool. Kind of interesting when you think about it. You probably don't think about that when you pull out your phone and start trolling your social media. There needs to be a river running through these buildings to keep them cool enough. So that's data centers, and we have about 19 of those globally. We are a global company. On a daily basis, I'm chatting with people in Hong Kong, Europe, Brazil earlier today. So that's kind of cool from a business standpoint as well. We have another division referred to as digital solutions. So that's the That's the technology next step for, you see, for what I've referred to as ground transportation or records and information management, taking those boxes, storing that data. What if I can go to you as a customer and say, hey, customer, you know all that data that you have to store because the government mandates anyway, that you store it anyway, you have to. What if I can, for no extra effort on your part, digitize all that information so you can either virtually go through the boxes, via a cloud link, simulating going through the boxes, seeing the data, or and that's pretty cool technology, imaging technology, OCR, and we've been doing that for a number of years. Or even more entertaining, what if we could give you customer trending over all of that data that you're storing? Now you're getting into the buzzwords. It's all the rage right now, ChatGPT, all of this. We've been doing that for a number of years, right? And of course, that's very well received from the customer base. So those are our major spaces: your records and information management, asset lifecycle management, data centers. So where am I going with this? So you can see how the business aspect and the cash flow from the traditional RAM records and information management feeds the next level technology. We're not going to be here for the next 70 years if we just focus on storing boxes, okay, or data destruction. So that's like a business management MBA 101 move, where you use the cash flow from your existing business to fund the futures for your next business. We're pretty good size. We're about 24,000 people globally, 16,000 people in the United States. We are doing about $5 billion a year in revenue. To give you an idea, once again, going back to that business plan to keep us secure for the future, if you check out our website, everything I talk about today is going to be available publicly on ironmountain.com, our home site. You'll see something called Project Matterhorn. And that's our growth initiative to take us from 4 billion, where we were 2 years ago, to 15 billion. And we have 5 years to do it. Right? We're not going to be doing that by moving more boxes, right? Not going to happen. Huge acquisitions in the data center space, in the recycling, IT recycling information space, et cetera, et cetera. So that's pretty much the areas that I focus in, is in the business development and the technology spaces in those areas that support those businesses' growth. Pause there for a second. How am I doing on time? I got about 2 minutes, maybe. Okay. So we talked about who we are, what we are, size, revenue, growth. Another interesting aspect of all of this, so for folks that are perhaps a little bit more technology facing, we do our own internal development for all of this. So within our enterprise IT organization, we have about 3,000 people that focus on doing the applications development. So depending on your definition, we're either small to a large size software company within a larger organization. Okay? If you look at us and check us out on the stock market, we are technically classified as a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust. Between our physical storage and our data center investment, which is, you imagine, extremely capital intensive, that actually has us listed as a REIT, because whereas in a technology company, most of your investment is in intellectual capital. With us, we're very, very heavy land-based investment capital, hence the term REIT. Now, why does that loop back around to your business to technology discussion? Because again, it's a fairly unique model where we have all the capital intensiveness focused towards the technology space, especially software. There's not a lot of capital investment in software, but data centers the opposite end of that spectrum. So that gives you a pretty good 10,000-foot overview of who we are, where we are, why we need technology people, where we see the growth going. And I believe I'm going to stop there. That puts me right at about time.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. That was actually such a great overview, and I learned quite a bit that I didn't know. So that's excellent. I appreciate that. So I wonder, And actually, let me take a step back, and I'll say too that I've got a couple questions that I'm going to be asking Bob. We'll have a quick conversation here, and as we talk, feel free to just pop your questions in the chat. Don't hold them; just put them in there. We'll gather them up and we'll cover them at the end. But to get us started, Bob, I wonder, based on you talked about the business side, the tech side, where it's going, especially all of that growth, which good luck. It sounds like you guys are on the right track for that. What do you see as the most in-demand tech and or business roles in your company to support this growth?
So that actually dovetails perfectly into what I do pretty much on a daily basis. So from a technology standpoint, there's a couple of areas. So network engineering, network infrastructure. I saw somebody post that they're looking into focusing on cybersecurity. That's definitely a very strong area. Um, all of the all of those tens of thousands of servers that we're talking about, they all get linked. They're all network engineered. You don't just put that many servers together just by plugging them together. So there's actually a very strong network engineering component to that. So those are a couple of spaces. From a software standpoint, um, we're very, as you'd imagine, cloud centric. I mentioned earlier, having that link, being able to give it out to customers and have them go through. So any full stack development technologies, cloud technologies, .NET, C#, Java. We happen to be a Google shop, so GCP, the Google protocol is very strong with us. GCP, Google Cloud Protocol platform. AWS is Amazon's version of that. Clearly, everybody's heard of Amazon. That's a very strong space. And then Microsoft's version is Azure. And we don't do that as much because we are a Google shop, but you get the same idea that in cloud technologies. We do a ton. We are an Oracle platform shop, so software and solutions architecture is huge. The ability, and that's a nice blend of business skills and tech skills, because the software architects go out and they identify the business needs, what the customer has, what we have as a solution option, and then they engineer that, coming that together. So you need the technology skills, but you also need the business savvy. And then one last area, and I spend a large amount of my time in this space: project management, program management, product management. So people coming maybe from more of a business background that want to, I want a foot in the technology, but I don't necessarily want to be coding all day. Great space. Somebody needs to be there to run the programs, run the projects, keep it all running. Somebody's in charge of the product technology. What's the next latest, greatest? Where does that go? And that's what those people do.
I love that. That's great to know. Do you have any examples of what you talked about? So basically examples of projects or, successful projects where two different, a more tech-centered team and a more business-centered team has come together, and what that process looked like?
Absolutely. We do it every day. We have entire groups within the company that focus on implementation architecture, or customer requirements, product management. So like I talked about the AI scanning technology within our product group. Well, somebody or a team of somebody's needs to know the market well enough to say, hey, you know what? I think there's a demand in this. I think, based on my research, that a capital investment of $2-3 million in labor to get this software to work will return this potential gain in customer offerings and potential future revenue. So that's a really good example of somebody that has the business savvy, yet applying it in a very real return on investment, strategic decision in a technology company. Project managers, again, a bridging position. We sell an implementation. We need to Iron Mountain's got 30, 40, 50 different product options. Customers decide which ones they want. We need to integrate that. Are they running, are their operational systems Oracle? Are they any number of suite of any other number of databases? How do we get that integrated so that, when I give you that cloud link, it comes up and it should work just like you're sitting at your desktop, and you can be home, you can be in the office, you can be wherever, should be transparent. So that's another really good example of the business applications folks interfacing with technology. Happens every single day. It's nonstop in our space.
I wonder then on the flip side, and I'll even pick on myself a little bit because I was very much an English major. I'm in the liberal arts. It's very much my happy place. And because of that, I can camouflage myself at a superficial level. I can have this conversation. I could talk about math or science or STEM or art. But if you go past that, I know nothing. So I wonder if there's almost a flip side of that, where there's ever been a moment where there's a business team and a tech team, and they're just talking completely different languages. And has it gone badly, or how would you suggest, do you do things that, as a company, to avoid that, to make sure that there is an even meshing?
So that can happen, and like any skills that an employee or a person develops over time, the the technology folks, when they're earlier in their career, tend to be very engineering and technology focused. They talk computer and technology and do it very well. The business folks tend to be the opposite end of that spectrum. They're very comfortable with business and finance, and it wasn't that long ago in the industry that these hybrid roles, the programs, the project managers, the product, the implementation architects, those are relatively new concepts, right? And people either came out of engineering space and thought, you know what, I sort of have this business savvy, or the other side, the business savvy that likes the technology space, and they kind of came to the middle on that. So over time, both with individuals, developing their skill and within the industry, we've determined that, hey, you know what, you need both. You really need both to get it to work. So, there's always examples of, mistakes people make earlier in their career where, it's the classic joke about you go to IT and you ask them a question and you get an answer that's technically right, but you don't understand a thing they said. So as a customer, did that solve your problem? No, right? So, having somebody on that side that can break it down a few notches to know what you're asking, what you need, and answer the question, maintaining technical accuracy. Have you walk away going, oh, okay, great. Now I know what I need to do. That's cool. That's a really good example of having that happen, when it can go well, when it cannot go well. And I think we've all been in that situation. You hang up on the tech support call and you're either singing the person's praises or scratching your head wondering, I didn't get any of that.
I once finished a tech call and I had to jerry rig a screwdriver to make it work as per their instructions. So I fully understand. Um, so to follow that collaboration idea down a bit further, I wonder, I guess physically or electronically, what communication channels do y'all have, and do they differ if you're sucked into a project? Like, for example, does the whole office use like Teams or Slack, and then do the projects managers tend to meet better in person, or kind of what does that look like?
So that has changed significantly over the last couple of years. One of the reasons you'll see, you can tell, obviously, I'm in a home office environment right now. We run traditionally 70 to 80% remote employees in our exempt capacities. So this is the way we do business. And that's why I'm sitting here in my home office without a fake background, this to give people an idea of, hey, this is the way we do business, okay? Obviously, I'm on my camera. I'm on my camera probably 70% of my day. So to answer your question, this is the way we do it. It wasn't that long ago that when you did a new customer installation, that meant taking the team, jumping on a plane, flying to wherever globally, because we are a global company, and doing the implementation, putting people up, going back and forth, wrapping weekends. Tough life for those implementation folks, right? So that a lot of that's changed now, right? So just people are getting much more comfortable with doing it this way. We do. I mentioned earlier we are a Google shop, so this is very similar to what we're doing now, but the G Suite's a lot more integrated than the Microsoft offerings are. So I can pull things up in real time. Everything's shared, so sheets, documents, it's all in real time and it's all centralized. So I can be communicating with somebody in real time in Hong Kong, and I do this fairly often, and we're collaborating on a document. The only thing I need to be concerned about is time zone differences. So that's very, very powerful, and that has changed the game. And that's how we integrate nowadays. And post-COVID, we're up to about 80+% in the remote capacities, which gives us incredible flexibility to draw the right people from the right spaces. I literally staff globally, so that's a game changer as far as being able to support remote data centers or remote customers wherever they are. I'm remote, yet I'm fully operational. So that's a very powerful thing to be able to do, and that's how we do it.
I absolutely agree. And I have to ask too, you personally, so at this point in time, we've said that you talk again with like these tech teams, these business teams, you talk, Brazil, Hong Kong, you talk to remote people. For you personally, what is your number one skill that lets you talk to all of those different, stakeholders, but personalities and things like that? What do you think is your key piece there?
In my position, especially when you're bridging of being focused predominantly in talent acquisition, it's almost going to sound trite, but the ability to take a half step back and listen. Listen to what the person's asking for. Listen to them with the intent of understanding. Far too often, we jump to wanting to resolve the issue sooner rather than later, with all the right intent. But it will go much smoother if you have the emotional intelligence and the confidence to take a half step back, let them walk through the questions, fully understand it, repeat it. In a global capacity, that's even more important because language communication can be a barrier. So I am by no means conversant in any other language other than English. So to a large extent, I'm the limiting factor. However, English does tend to be the predominant international business language. However, if it's not that individual's native tongue, it does take a little bit of patience. And to be able to be comfortable with that is very helpful. It's helpful for them. It's helpful for me. So I believe that's probably the single most piece of information. Listen with the intent of understanding, then start talking about, repeat, confirm, yes, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and go from there. Once you gain people's confidence and that you're there to help, you'll be amazed at how much smoother things will go.
I love that. That's a great answer. And it's funny because I have to tell the group that we had pre-scripted questions, and I have more or less asked Bob those questions, but I have rephrased every single one. So I think, pointing to his favor, the fact that you're able to live take what I'm saying, which is different than what you expected, and deliver a question. I think that's a really good, it's a great piece of advice. So thank you. So I do have one more question, just from ahead of time, basically, and then again, any questions you guys have, we've been gathering them in the chat. We'll pivot and we'll focus on those. But Bob, for my last question, can you recommend any specific hard skills or certifications or programs that students should consider when it comes to Iron Mountain or even in general?
Yes. So first off, kudos to everybody for working on your formalized educational process. That's a great start, right? And you're obviously engaged with Southern New Hampshire so that's a great start. As far as what to do next, there's definitely a number of certifications out there. So when we talked about program and project management, the PMI, the Project Management Institute, offers a certification called the PMP, Professional in, Project Management Professional. That's a really good start. If you like, it's kind of it is the industry standard if you're going into programs and project spaces. There are some restrictions on how long you've been in the industry before you can go through there, and they've just recently introduced an associate program. So it's something you can do like right out of school or with a couple of years of experience. But at least being aware of things like that, that's a good place to start. Within the particular cloud technologies, Google is like the epitome of anything you need to know is online, and you can get a certification in it. So all the GCP certifications, any of the AWS certifications, and those just say that, hey, this is, I've got my traditional education, yet this is a little bit more hands-on applicable. It's not necessarily something that I'd be looking for in a new grad, and I did an insane amount of new grad hiring. In my prior company, we were doing 600 or 700 a year, but it's a plus. If you now's the time in your life. If you're either just getting rolling or you're kind of in the educational mode, keep it going, right? Because any of these technology spaces, education will be continual. If you think you're going to wrap up school, do the walk, throw the hat, and be done, that is just not the way it works. I myself, even today, I was LinkedIn Learning is kind of like the latest, greatest ease of access program. To do that, they acquired lynda.com. So it's a really good platform for training. But any of those certifications that I talked about, you can at least get started in that space. This agile development programs, all sorts of stuff. Just go out, type in certification. But from the bridging programs and projects, the PMI is the gold standard.
That's perfect. And I have to plug that all SNHU students have access to LinkedIn Learning. And I can say from my perspective,
Awesome.
I know, yeah, it's awesome. I know I got my bachelor's degree and I walked away and said never ever again. And I'm now in my second grad term. So continual learning is always key. And that's great to hear. And I wonder, Bob, in that same vein, so same question, slightly different. What would you say someone who maybe has had a full career, has gone back to school for, a tech or a business field, and they're now looking to talk about like transferable skills and to make that career pivot? What would you say to that student?
So I actually do a fair amount with people in that space. I just hired somebody that was an environmental scientist that I pulled out of FEMA, and he had done an adult career change. So certifications are very helpful in that space because those leverage those. You're competing when you're a career changer. You're in this interesting in between space. You're sort of competing with new grads. You're sort of competing with experienced people. So it's in a unique space. The certifications definitely help in that space. I would also say I personally find value in and would advise don't be shy about leveraging your other experiences. If you had a professional role somewhere, someplace in a prior career, there's a lot of applicable skills. I am by no means picking on folks that don't have as much business acumen, but those are skills that, there's a reason why when you do your grad work, there's so many group projects. Right? We've all been there. It's that dynamic of, oh man, I just want to do my job by myself. Let me get the work done. But you can't. It doesn't work that way, right? So interfacing with the different people is a good start, and you'll see that's going to continue. In lots of times, career changers have more of that just because they've done it a little bit longer. So that I'd say to folks doing that, be confident in that you are bringing transferable skills, and don't be shy about leveraging them. And it is valued. there's merit to, kind of the been there, done that. Similar with people transitioning from the military. A lot of people come out of the military, leverage the GI Bills, or the equivalent of today's GI Bill, something, and go back and get do their undergraduate work. There's definitely experience and applicable leverage there as well.
That's a great shout. I appreciate you mentioning that. And we have had a couple questions come in, so I'll stop hogging with my own questions. And one student asked if you could discuss internships or the like at Iron Mountain, if you guys do that, what that might look like.
Internships are super important. I can't stress enough how much I support that idea, for both sides. So from the company standpoint, it's the new grads and the interns that are the future, right? I mean, if we don't keep new blood coming in, we're all going to just not going to keep up, and things are going to go stale, and bad things happen. Equally, if not more important, an internship gives you a really good feel for, hey, do I like this or do I not like this? One of the reasons I like to think of myself as reasonably well versed in these bridge positions is because I started in computer science. I did not go the internship route. It wasn't that common back then. And I got there, and after a year, I'm like, I don't like this, right? So what do you do now? So there's huge merit in doing that internship and being able to kind of try it out and morph while you have the ability to do so. Maybe you find out you like more of the UI applications. Maybe you're more of an embedded. Maybe you're front end. Maybe you're back end. Maybe you're full stack. These are the types you get a much better feel for it in an intern capacity than you would just straight doing educational project work.
Absolutely. And sorry, my whole train of thought just left me right there. Okay, so that is great to know. I also wonder, another question that we had from a student was, how can businesses ensure ethical behavior regarding different cultures and countries? I was pretty interested in that
That
one.
question came up, and I actually made a note to go back to that. That is super important, because things that we take, international students may have a better insight into this than students that have lived traditionally in the US their entire lives. Labor laws, things that we think of as absolute, of course it's that way in the United States, are totally different in different parts of the country. Security laws, privacy laws, HIPAA laws, labor requirements, they're totally different country to country. Sometimes they're different within countries, state to state. Conceptually, the way it is in the United States, but like vastly more so. I mean, there's just things in the US that we consider, diversity and inclusion in the United States is very strong right now. It's very unique to the United States. Okay, so there are a number of countries in the world globally that you can't ask people to self-identify gender or race or nationality or any of that. So things that we think of as just, well, of course we're going to do that. You go to different parts of the world. No, that's a huge no-no. Employment contracts in the UK and the European nations are huge. Simple things like being able to resign from your position, notices, US 2 weeks, that's considered fine. A lot of EMEA and APAC are 2 to 3 month notice windows. So you really need to be on top of what are the local rules and regulations. So that was a great question. I saw that one fly by. I'm like, I have to address that. So thank you for bringing that up. It's a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's see, I've got one more question here. And I'm trying to, oh, there it is. I'm sorry. So how important is it to link a portfolio of work when a student is applying? Like, so do you value portfolios as a recruiter, basically?
So that's similar to the cover letter question. keep in mind the way applicant tracking systems work. Okay, so you need to catch the recruiter's attention within an insanely short amount of time, like 4 or 5 seconds. Okay, and I'm being generous. Sometimes it's less than that. I'm not trying to scare anybody off, but it's a reality. So my point is, if there's applicable work in your portfolio that lines up, say you did an imaging project and you're applying to my RIM imaging job, right? Definitely want to apply that, right? But to put a laundry list of like project work that you did that's kind of a little bit more generic, I'm not necessarily sure it's as critical. What is important, it actually, I'm gonna take a half step back. I'm not trying to discount that. I mean, it's perfect that it looks like Ben asked the question. It's perfect that Ben's thinking along the lines of, hey, how do I map what I'm doing for my project work to real world stuff? And that's really important. But it's kind of like the cover letters. It needs to be something extra, right? Don't just include the same stuff a different way in an additional document. So similar to cover letters, if you have something to say that's different or unique, or you're applying it to something that I'm doing, I'm all for it. But the way the applicant tracking systems work, it's fairly likely that unless the recruiter does a deeper dive, they'll never even see it. So just you kind of need to think a little bit about how, the days of going through paper resumes and cover letters are dinosaur technology, right? So the way we do it nowadays is you're applying into the rec, and I can effectively bundle and batch things into searchable files. So I don't necessarily see your resume and your cover letter and your work history the way you think I do. You need to catch my attention on the resume and the application, and then I'll do a deeper dive to see your additional supporting documents. And that also goes to a quick side note. With resumes and such, keep in mind that it's all OCR, character recognition nowadays, right? You're going to scan an image. I don't see resumes anymore. I see the images of what you submitted or uploaded. Keep them clean. Keep some white space. If it's too tight, if you get all these, unless you're a graphics art major applying for that role, scale back on all the heavy colors, because the systems do a horrible job even today of uploading them. It makes it really tough to read. And if I've got 300 people I'm looking through and I can't read your resume, I'm not gonna. It's just a cold reality. So
Sure.
Clean, neat, factual, get to the point. Get the information out there. But the supporting information is helpful.
Perfect. So I know we're at time, so I guess it's like a final wrap-up question. And you may have even in a way already answered it with the end of that statement, but what is the best way to catch your attention with a resume?
Best way. Well, the intern question lines into that nicely. Because then you're a known quantity. So we do a lot of our hires, mostly through my career. We kind of go to our interns first. So if you can land that intern position, used to be that they didn't pay all that well. Now the intern positions are paying pretty much as well as anything else out there. But it used to be, the advice was, hey, look, like even if you have to take a little bit less, get in there, get your foot in the door, prove what you can do, because now you're a known quantity. And 9 times out of 10, if you've come in, done a good effort, we're gonna do something to keep things moving, right? I mean, it's pretty tough to not move forward in that capacity. State what you want. So a quick objective. If you've done a lot of things in your background and it's kind of not super clear what you want to do, tell me in the objective. It's the first thing I see in your summary statement when I pop up your resume. It alleviates the question. Don't be shy about tailoring. Everybody has, come on, yeah, 2023, right? Everybody's got the ability to tailor their resumes at this point. If I'm sitting there trying to figure out what you want, we're missing the point. Hit me over the head with it so I can't miss it. That's
Yeah.
pretty universally true.
No,
Those
that's
are
great.
really couple of pointers.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, tailoring resumes is never fun, but the payoff is high, so I can definitely appreciate that.
If it's worth, if there's
Sure.
something significant, like again, I mean, if you're applying for a GCP role and you've got all this GCP experience, that's obvious, right? And it's going to take care of itself. Um, Buzzwords or a statement of technology skills that you have in your toolbox, that's helpful because the way that, again, back to the way the ATSs work, I can search for that. So if make sure it's there. Another thing too, for international students, if you are if you do not have if you're a citizen or a permanent resident or do not need sponsorship for employment requirements, put that on your resume, okay? Because I've worked, like a lot of DoD companies have hard requirements that you need to be, a citizen. So if I don't know, um, I don't know. If you spell it out, that opens a lot more doors for you.
Sure. So yeah, so be transparent, be straightforward. And I think really a theme, if I could draw one out from what you've said today, is to be confident, which I know is kind of a, sure, I can sit here and I can say that, but I think that confidence really does go a long way based off what you've said today. So I definitely appreciate that, and I resonate with that. So that's excellent to hear. Um, at this point, I have kept everyone 5 minutes late, so I do apologize. Bob, thank you so much for being here with us this evening. It's been so helpful. It's been a great way to pass, nearly an hour, and we appreciate the time. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, no pressure. Just,
So I'll defer to you if people have more questions that we haven't covered and you want to go a little bit longer. I blocked off until 7 tonight, so I can do that. I think we covered a lot of them. I'm looking through the chats. Bilingual, if you're looking at international positions, that is absolutely a positive for us. I know I'm always looking for people like in LATAM that are bilingual in Spanish, so that's very helpful. Also, this would be a bit of a stretch, but I mean, for our company, I'm thinking a little stretch for most, but any foreign languages are good. Word documents versus PDFs. I don't have a strong preference one way or the other. For the most part, if you go to a PDF, that most HR organizations do not have full Adobe systems, so that effectively locks your resume, so nobody can edit it. If I'm editing resumes, I'm generally reaching out to you to tell you what I'm looking for anyway. So judgment call. Links to the PMI certs. The CAPM is the associate position that I was talking about. That is absolutely the case, and the PMP is the experience cert that I was referring to.
I think we really covered the rest of them. You've been so thorough, and I really appreciate that. But yeah, no, I think we got all of them. If we do have any remaining follow-up questions, Bob, what I'll do is I'll shoot them over to you, and then I can, email it out with the wrap up, because this recording will be sent out to the students as well. So we can follow up if there are any little gems that we missed throughout the chat. But I definitely don't want to take up too much of everyone's evening. So again, Bob, thank you so much for being here this evening. I will go ahead and wrap us up and let us all head out of here and go home, or at least leave our offices in mine and Bob's case. But thank you again, and thank you everyone for being here this evening.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for the invite, and kudos and congratulations to everyone as you continue on your journey. Persistence, keep chatting with people, and it will all come together. And when you land your first job, just pay it forward. People will be asking you for advice someday.
Yes, that's great. Thank you guys so much, and everyone have a good night.
Have a great evening.